And I'll go ahead and introduce you, Kay.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started today with our virtual presentation over public benefits and wills. Today we have Kay who's going to present to us. This information will be recorded for those of you who are not able to make it. And for those who did make it today, thank you for joining us today. If you do have any questions, you can still email me and I'll get those to Kay and I'll post them on our branch website for answers so that she can help you with those questions. We do have a few questions that were submitted and she will be answering today as well. So without further ado, I'll let Kay go ahead and start the presentation. Thank you, Kay, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Deanna. And thank you very much for hosting us this morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to just bring some information to the public. And in my career, my thinking is always to educate and empower people. If I can get information to people and they can do what they need to do, it's much better than them trying to track down a lawyer and try to fix things on the other end. So I'm always happy to provide information. For everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Kay Peachin. I'm the managing attorney at Legal Aid here in Amarillo, and we are a non-profit law firm. We represent low-income families in all kinds of legal matters. We help people with family law. We help people with wills and probate, unemployment, Social Security, bankruptcy, foreclosure prevention, all kinds of things. We also have a unit that helps in our community. It's called the Community Revitalization Program, and they help with community development. So we are a full-service law firm. We do have an application process, and we welcome anyone to apply for our services. And people will at least get some information or advice, even if we are not able to fully represent them in their legal matter. I am so happy to be here this morning, and Deanna handed me some questions, and I want to start off by just saying that this is just legal information. I cannot address anyone's specific legal problem. I cannot just provide advice, but I will give information and try to answer questions in general. I would like to start by saying the time to figure out if you need a will is early in life. You may not need a will when you are in your 20s and you don't have any property that you're trying to protect or pass down to generations. However, when you have a house, when you have vehicles, when you have in some things that you would like to pass down to your children or your family members, that is the time to start thinking about whether or not you need a will. In Texas, the probate process is really complicated and you have to have an attorney. So when we talk to people about whether or not they need a will, we will start by trying to figure out if there are ways to go about what they want to accomplish without having to go through the court process. And there are many ways to do that. So that's one of the things that we talk with people about is, do you really need a will to do what you want to do? And if you don't, then let's do it in a simple manner so that your family, when you're gone, they don't have to go to court. They can go through these other easy processes. So those are some things that we talk about with our clients. So if someone does have a will, the process is after they die, then their executor, the person they have designated as their executor in their will have to hire an attorney and go to court to probate that will. So that is the first step. That probate has to happen within 4 years of the person's death. So the court action has to be filed within 4 years. And then there is a process. It can be either a dependent administration of the will, that's what they call it, administration, or it can be an independent administration of the will. So if it's a dependent administration, then the executor has to go to the judge every time they want to do something with the deceased person's property and get permission from the court. So that is an even more complicated procedure than an independent administration. And an independent administration, which is what we mostly see, the executor will get together a list of all the deceased person's property. It's called an inventory. And they give the inventory to the court. That inventory becomes the catalog of what needs to go to whom. And the executor can start distributing things to the people that to whom it's designated in the will. So it's a really complicated process, and it can take a long time. Sometimes it can take years to have an administration go through. And it just depends on how things go. Sometimes the executor doesn't want to be the executor, and there has to be a new executor appointed. Sometimes the executor can't find all of the assets of the decedent, and they have to look. They have to hire people to look for that, and that can be very expensive. So it's a big process that a family has to go through, or the heirs have to go through, to distribute the person's property. And that can include a simple bank account. If somebody has a bank account, say my mother had a bank account and I'm not on that account, she dies with a will, we execute her will in probate, I can't touch that account until I have letters of administration from the court. And so it can be a very cumbersome process for people. So, and that is a situation that we see quite frequently, is a person will have a bank account and it is in the deceased person's name solely, and it cannot be accessed by the family members to even help with burial expenses or anything until they have letters of administration from the court. So that's the basic process for a will and the administration of a will. A lot of people want to have a will because they have property to distribute, or for instance, they may want to kick one of their children or their relatives out of inheriting anything from them. So they will disinherit them. And that has to happen through a will. So a person has to designate, I have X, Y, and Z children, and I am disinheriting Y, because you don't have to say why, but you have to specifically designate that you are disinheriting someone. So what happens if a person doesn't have a will? If a person dies without a will, then Texas provides for what we call intestacy, intestate succession. Big fancy words for your family members are going to get your property. And that property, the family members who are going to get your property are designated by the statute. So, and it's very complicated. Even practicing law for 27 years, I have to look at a diagram to figure out, okay, who's going to inherit because this person died without a will. So generally it's going to be your children, and it can be children from a prior marriage. It doesn't have to be just your children with the person to whom you're married. So that process is extremely complicated, and it breaks down into separate property and community property. So there are lots of ins and outs and twists and turns, and who knows why they did it this way. So that's a really complicated process on its own. So when someone dies and they have property, let's say it's my mother and she has a house and she did not leave a will, then what I have to do is figure out what is the best process for us to administer her estate. So in some situations, you can file what's called a small estate affidavit, and there cannot be any debt in the property or in the estate, not the property, in the estate, but there can be, for instance, a mortgage on your primary residence. Or we can file what's called a determination of heirship. And that's where the court looks at who are all the people who may inherit. And we try to figure out who are the correct heirs to that property. But then we have to start what's called an administration. So we're going back to that probate process where the court is either going to determine it's independent administration or dependent administration of the estate. So again, it gets complicated on the back end. I forgot to mention that there's one simple way to probate a will. If there are no debts and there may be a house and the will is valid, you can file what's called a muniment of title. And the court can determine that that will is valid and the people in the will are going to inherit. But there are extreme limits on that process. And first of all, the will has to be valid. So back to when you don't have a will. So many people do not have wills and they leave houses, for instance, to their heirs. And it may be that you have 3 children with your current spouse and a child with a prior spouse. All 4 children may inherit that house that you have left behind. And that's when things get really complicated. So one of the things that people can do, I'll go into a few of the non-probate ways to transfer property. One of the things that a person can do if they want to transfer, for instance, their house or property to a particular person, then they can have prepared a transfer on death deed. That deed is going to designate to which person it is going to be transferred. The houses or the property is going to be transferred. This is for real property only, real estate. And that transfer happens by operation of law when the owner of the property who's prepared the transfer on death deed dies. So it is operation of law that now the person who's designated on the transfer is now the owner. And one of the reasons we push transfer on death deeds a lot is that you don't have to go through the probate process for this. It is an automatic operation of law transfer. The second reason is that if the person in the property has received Medicaid, then that transfer on death goes by operation of law to the new person, and the Medicaid estate recovery program can't take that house from the family. Okay, so the transfer happens to, let's say the transfer is coming from my mother to me, and my mother was on Medicaid before she died. Then the Medicaid system is going to try to gather whatever assets my mother had and to repay itself for the Medicaid she received. So by that transfer on death deed, the transfer comes directly to me. It does not go through the probate process, and the MERP program, that's what we call it, Medicaid Estate Recovery Program, cannot have that house. Now, there are other ways to protect a house also, but that's one of the simplest ways to do it is by a transfer on death deed. So that is one reason why we recommend them highly, especially to low-income folks. Most people, that house is going to be their biggest, most prized asset. And we want to try to keep it out of the hands of the state and in the hands of the family. So we have some generational wealth building here. So that's really important. Other ways for people to have assets that they can transfer outside of probate is if they have, for instance, insurance proceeds. Most insurance proceeds, if they are designated to a specific beneficiary, will pass outside of probate to the beneficiary. If there's no beneficiary designated for insurance proceeds, then it goes to the estate and you have to go through the probate process. So that is some general ideas about probate, wills, and some ways to transfer outside. Hi, David. Transfer outside of probate to keep yourself out of court. So there are also other things people ask us for. They ask us for help with powers of attorney, healthcare representative forms, advanced directives. So I want Deanna to make health decisions about me if I'm incompetent, and she has to have a legal document that says she is allowed to make decisions for me, for my healthcare decisions. For instance, if I had life and death decisions to make, or let's say I'm unconscious and Deanna has to make a decision whether I have a transplant or not. The healthcare representative can help with those kinds of the need for you to have authority to make decisions for someone else. For powers of attorney can be specifically drawn up to be for particular purposes. So you can have a financial power of attorney where the only power that you're giving that other person is the power to do X, Y, and Z. For instance, to write checks for my bills, to talk to people about my bills. I can give the power for making real estate decisions, buying and selling real estate. Powers of attorney are going to give a broad spectrum of powers to the person who's designated with that power. And you can tailor those to what you want. You can also tailor it to go into effect when you want. It can go into effect immediately. It can go into effect when you become incapacitated. So there are different ways that you can structure a power of attorney to be what you need it to be. When we represent a client with a power of attorney, we are writing the power of attorney for our client. We're not helping the person who's going to get the power. We are writing the power of attorney for the person who is designating who will get the power. So our attorneys talk to the clients about, okay, what do you want this to do? What do you need it to do? So it can be very specific for the person's needs. I want to answer a couple of questions about powers of attorney and wills. Deanna had those questions specifically. The first question is, do you have to be a POA for the elderly will? I don't understand the question. So I think the question says, do you have to be elderly to have a POA? No, you do not. You can be of any age over the age of 18. And that is, you're giving, like I said, specific powers to a person to help you do things. For instance, we see a lot of folks who are going into, for instance, going into a nursing home and they want one of their kids to help them with their bills. That is a really common thing where an adult who is declining in mental capacity, they're not incapacitated, but maybe they're missing their bills and they can't remember to keep on a schedule. They give that power to their kids to help them with that kind of thing. What about wills for children? So I didn't know the answer to this question before we started this. I looked it up and the statute says you have to be 18 to be of sound mind to prepare a will in Texas. However, it says if you are in the military, then you can do a will, which makes sense. If you are married, you can make a will. These are very old concepts. I don't know why you have to be married or in the military if you're under 18 to be able to do a will. I understand the military, but it makes no sense. It's an arbitrary line. It's an 18 or older or one of these two things. Can you just do a notarized statement for a will? Texas does recognize what we call holographic wills, which is a handwritten will. So you need to do a will in your handwriting. You need to make sure that your signature's in there. You need to say certain phrases. But yes, you can do a holographic will. And sometimes the courts will accept things that we wouldn't expect as holographic wills, and that's very fact specific. We sometimes will have one where the person will say, I, Kay Peachin, being of sound mind and body, do blah, 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 and that will be enough for a signature for a will. But there are specific rules about holographic wills. Those are just handwritten wills. But like I said, sometimes those wills do not conform explicitly with the rules and the courts allow them to go forward, but it is a possibility to do it. Any other questions that you can think of, Deanna? She's on mute.
Not in particular. I didn't ask it. Sorry. Not in particular. Those are my main two questions. I'll leave our audience if they have a question to go ahead and ask it.
Good morning. I just want to say I thank the Women in NAACP, the WIN Committee, and the Legal Aid Northwest Texas office here in Amarillo for hosting this event. This has been extremely informative. If you don't know by now, this is Patrick Miller, and I'm very thankful and appreciative of everyone who is responsible for putting this together. I know we have other NAACP Amarillo branch members on the call. I say good morning to them as well. I have a question regarding the process of modifying an estate if a will has already gone into effect because a person has died, in order to reflect a more modest or perhaps even an increase in affluence as it pertains to the estate. Is there a process for that?
That's a really good question. Good morning, Mr. Kellogg. We have David Kellogg with our law firm. David is a staff attorney here in Amarillo, and he practices in this area, and also one of his areas of specialization is veterans. He helps veterans with all kinds of different issues. David, do you have an answer for that question that Patrick just...
I'm afraid that I don't really have an answer. I've heard of situations in which assets disappear in terms of during the end of before the end of a person's lifetime, so they aren't available for distribution. But I haven't heard the situation, and there's no reason why it might not be common, but I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't apologize. I just thought I'd put it out there. I really do appreciate the information that has been provided. I really didn't know about the independent administration of the executive of an estate, and that was very good information. And I was not aware that Texas recognizes the holographic wills. I think that's very important information to get out to the general public. Thank you again for allowing me to ask my question, and again, thank you for putting on this amazing presentation.
Now, Mr. Miller, as an attorney, my general response would be to that question. It depends. So attorneys have to try to figure out what the law is going to do, how we're going to apply it to our certain set of facts. And it can change from case to case. But in my general understanding of estates and the estate probate process, the court does not have the discretion to do anything but follow what the will says. So there is in a will, you designate who your heirs are going to be, and you can designate my heirs are going to receive X, Y, and Z. So then you have what's called in the remainder estate. That is all your other stuff that hasn't been specifically bequeathed to someone. And I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background. I apologize for that. So in that remainder, that is where the estate, that your increase in property or the changes in your property can be impacted. And whomever is designated as the remainder interest, whoever the person is who's going to inherit that remainder, that is where it would be divided. And it would be divided in terms of the particular shares of things that people are going to, that the person has used to divide that property. So my understanding is that the court has to follow the specifics of the will, and they don't have the authority or jurisdiction to make any changes to what the person said in their will. They just have to try to make it apply to the situation as it is, using what we have in the law.
Oh, thank you. That helps to provide clarification.
Sure. So we will also be talking about some public benefits today. And as you might imagine, there are lots of public benefits that are available to folks. And the first thing that most people ask about is Social Security. What's available? What do I have to do to get it? How long is it going to take? What age do I have to be? How much am I going to get? Those are the kinds of things that we get asked questions about. So Social Security is a really broad program. And as you all know, we pay into Social Security through our paychecks. So it's the that Social Security deduction, and then there's also a Medicare deduction from your paycheck. That's in addition to your federal income tax. That money is paid by your employer. It's withheld by your employer from your pay, and then it is matched by the employer, and that is sent to the Social Security Administration and deposited. So do we get that money back when we need it? No, not exactly in that way. So people have to apply for Social Security benefits. Social Security will be available to people who are elderly, disabled, retired. Generally 3 categories. There's also a category for children. Children can receive what's called supplemental security income if they are disabled. And Social Security has a rigid set of rules for children to become eligible for Social Security. It's supplemental security income. It's not based on any payment into any payment from employment. So children have to be disabled in pretty egregious ways, pretty serious disabilities to be eligible for SSI. Adults can also be eligible for supplemental security income if they do not have significant quarters of employment that they've paid into Social Security. So supplemental security income is needs-based, so it's based on your income. You have to be income eligible to receive it. You have to be very low income, no income basically, and you are paid a certain amount every month. And in general, that amount is about 700 and I think it's 774 or something like that a month. And that can be a children's benefit or it can be an adult's benefit. Social Security disability is based on the same exact disability rules that supplemental security income is for adults. So if I have a work history and I become disabled, I apply for Social Security through the administration, and then they will look at my work history, they'll look at my education, they're going to look at what my disability is. And then they apply all of these different standards to those factors. And their doctors and their caseworkers will analyze whether or not I meet the rule for being eligible for disability. So it's one of those administrative processes where if you can imagine red tape, and the biggest red tape you've ever seen, that's going to be the Social Security Administration. Most people, 75% of people who apply for Social Security disability do not receive it on their first round. They will get an initial denial. And that's because the administration is looking at them on paper. They're just looking at their paper records. Their medical records are just going to be paper records. So they're not reviewing the person. Then if they're denied at the initial denial level, they have another step in the administrative process, and that's called the request for reconsideration. A person needs to file that request for reconsideration within 60 days of getting that initial denial. Then Social Security takes another look on paper at you and your disability. They ask for updated medical records. So they do all of this investigation and they make another decision. Most of the time, it's a rubber stamp of the prior decision. If they're denied at the reconsideration level, and they most likely will be, they have another step, and that's called the administrative law judge. So they go to administrative law judge hearing. It's in front of a person. There are witnesses there. Your client can be there. In Amarillo, most of these are done by video conference with judges who are in Oklahoma City or Dallas or wherever. But it is an in-person type thing where the judge listens to the person. That's where an attorney can be the most helpful, is at that level of the Social Security process. And we will build a record, we'll get medical records, we'll put together a case, and we can make that presentation to the judge. That's when those folks who are denied are going to find themselves eligible. However, that process can take up to 2 years to get to a hearing with a judge. So we just tell people, stick to it, file your appeals, then come to us when you're at that administrative law judge level. So those are the first 2 types of benefits. The easier ones are the Social Security retirement. And Social Security retirement, you can take it at an early age, 62. You can take it at a designated age where you are fully insured for Social Security, and that can be either 65 or 67. 65 is for people who were born, I believe, before 1960. People after that, it's the age of 67, and you can retire fully insured. You can also delay your retirement for a few years and receive an even higher benefit. If you can stick it out until you're 70, then and keep working until you're 70, your benefit will be higher because you continue to pay into the benefit. At 65, you're eligible to enroll in Medicare. And Medicare is going to provide some medical insurance, but we also have Medicare supplemental programs that you buy on the open market. And those programs will supplement what Medicare will not provide. Most of the time, you're going to get Medicare when you retire. People who are receiving SSI, if you receive $1 of supplemental security income in the state of Texas, you're going to be eligible for Medicaid. Medicaid pays for all of your medical needs, almost. As David can attest, sometimes Medicaid doesn't pay for stuff like braces when kids need braces. He's had some of those cases. So Medicaid is going to be available for some folks. If you are receiving Social Security disability, you won't be eligible for Medicare until you've been on disability for 2 years, which leaves you with a 2-year gap. You don't have any medical coverage, but you may be getting a monthly benefit from Social Security. Then after you've been on Social Security disability for 2 years, you can be eligible for Medicare. So maybe David could share with us a little bit about the benefits that Medicare does provide as far as what is covered. Do you want to go into that a little bit, David?
Okay, well, certainly Medicare Part A, which is free, it covers hospital expenses. And Medicare Part B, which you generally pay a premium for, covers physician expenses. There's Medicare Part D, which is prescription drug expenses, which you generally pay a premium for. And then they have Medicare Part C, which is called Medicare Advantage, which is supposed to be all those services rolled up into one program.
And that one is a premium, right?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the ones that the way the premium is paid is the premium will be taken out of your Social Security benefit. It will be taken out of your Social Security disability or your Social Security retirement. If your benefit, if your cash benefit is too low, you may be eligible for Medicaid savings programs. And those programs pay the premium for Medicare out of Medicaid. So what did I tell you about red tape? This system is incredibly complicated, but to keep it simple, Medicare goes with disability and retirement. Medicaid goes with children's benefits and SSI, supplemental security income. But then Medicaid will jump in and pay low-income premiums for Medicare benefits. So a lot of our clients are going to get stuck in the middle somewhere where they don't have enough money to pay all their bills from their Social Security retirement, and Medicaid is taking a premium, or Medicare, but they're not eligible. They have too much income for the Medicaid savings program. So they're really complicated. But we can help with those problems, but also the Amarillo Area Agency on Aging is expert at these kinds of issues and can help people. They can be ombudsmen for people who have these kinds of issues. So let's see, other benefits that are available for, let me stop there and see if there are any questions about Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to
Go
go?
ahead. Go ahead.
So if someone is 65 and they're still wanting to work, but they want to get Medicare, are they able to still work, or are they going to have to completely stop working and fully retire in order to receive those benefits?
Very good question. So yes, you may keep working, and you can still draw your Social Security retirement and Medicare. Absolutely. There are work rules that are related to Social Security disability. Social Security disability has what's called the trial work period. And that's basically 9, it doesn't have to be consecutive months of earnings. And if your earnings are over a certain amount, then that may lead you to be dropped from Social Security disability. But you can continue to work, to try to work, because that's what the program is. It's let's see if we can get you back to work. You try it out, and we're going to give you some leeway to do that. With SSI, Supplemental Security Income, you can continue to work and draw the benefit, but you just have to keep your income under a certain level, because if you go over that amount and the amount changes, then you may be not disabled anymore. Okay, Mr. Miller, I think you also had a question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I apologize, Mrs. Miller, for interrupting you. I thank you for the time here. I have a question regarding Social Security. According to the Congressional Budget Office, at least a couple of years ago, it was projected by the year 2035, Social Security would run out of solvency. My understanding of that is that at that point in time, those who are eligible to receive full benefits would not receive full benefits. So it would only be about approximately 75% of the Social Security benefits that they were due. Would you be able to elaborate on that?
Mr. Kellogg?
I'm afraid I haven't thought that far ahead. It's certainly a picture, but that's what they say. I would think that there would have to be a modification of existing law, because I know that the Social Security Disability Trust Fund has already once become insolvent and was funded by Congress to continue. So presumably other government appropriations would be available to fill that gap if we're lucky. That's my retirement cohort.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have to have faith. You have to have faith that it's going to. And one of the reasons the pundits or the analysts, people who think about and write about these issues, one of the problems is that our younger generation is not big enough to support the generations ahead of it in Social Security, and also the pay gap. The younger generation isn't making as much money as the older generation did comparatively. So there are lots of fun factors in that, and it's fascinating to read about. I try not to, because like David, that's part of my retirement. And I'm going to just pray that it's there when I need it. And I think that Congress will make whatever alterations it needs to make or add funding to it, like David said, when it is needed. Social Security has been around for a very long time and has filled a very large need. And I think most of our society believes that it is incumbent on us to support our elderly and not have them live in poverty. And what we all say is, this is what I paid into. This is what I paid for. I paid for this my whole 40 years of working, or 50 years, whatever it is. So you better give it to me.
No, thank you. And a follow-up on that, I know that we obviously have a desire to see that continue as it was one of those great New Deal programs. However, with the ongoing talks regarding privatization, what type of impact would that have regarding benefits to American citizens who are going to hopefully receive what they've paid into?
Well, Patrick, you're talking to an old lefty. I cannot imagine our society privatizing Social Security. We have seen this with the private pensions and private retirement funds. You remember Enron? And
Yes.
what was that guy on Wall Street? I can't remember his name now. There are horror stories about privatization of retirement savings. And it's not just in the United States, it's other countries as well, where you see these horror stories about the privatization of retirement. And if I have a breath left in me, I'm going to fight against privatization of these kinds of benefits. It is incumbent on us to support our elderly. And we can't, if we don't do it in this way, we're going to be doing it in another way. And it's going to, in my opinion, we will be not wholesale, I can't think of the word. We will be putting our elderly into homes that are inadequate and just putting them places and not allowing them to live in the way that they have for however long they want to continue to live independently. I'm not being very articulate about it, but I think you get the idea.
Oh, no, and I can obviously interpret your passion behind this. It's a very serious issue, and we need to have informed discussions regarding it. The more dialogue that we have is absolutely paramount to resolving this issue prior to any type of dramatic changes that may be proposed.
Warehousing is the word I meant. We'll be warehousing the elderly in nursing homes.
I know none of us want to see that. Any of us with souls, obviously. But thank you for putting up with me. I absolutely love learning about all of these issues. Y'all are doing a marvelous job.
Thank you. The only little bit that I have left is about SNAP benefits and Tanf, temporary assistance for needy families, which is a benefit that is underutilized in our country. We do still have temporary assistance for needy families. In Amarillo, there's actually a program that helps folks who are on temporary assistance for needy families attend college at Amarillo College. So that there are some programs that are to help people lift themselves out of poverty or associated around temporary assistance for needy families. But it is an underutilized benefit. Also available are child care assistance. The Texas Workforce Commission, our work solutions folks around town, they're always begging for people to take advantage of their child care assistance programs. And they just need to go to Workforce Solutions to apply for that. I believe that they can apply online now. SNAP benefits are available for individuals, for families, for elderly. Many people know about SNAP benefits. A lot of folks go to the High Plains Food Bank. They have a special advocate there who can help them to apply for SNAP benefits. What used to be called food stamps now are called Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. So SNAP, one of the things that I see with SNAP benefits, and this is talking about our elderly again, is that our administration here does not help people fill out the applications and their budgets appropriately, so they're underutilizing SNAP benefits. A lot of seniors, especially those who are getting retirement and Medicare and have lots of medical bills that aren't covered by Medicare, they could get a higher benefit if they were budgeted correctly based on their medical expense deductions. So there are lots of deductions that can be used that are being underutilized, and people could receive a higher level of SNAP benefit. Also available for folks who are unemployed is unemployment compensation. As we know, the new America Rescue Plan has made available additional funds for unemployment compensation. And there's going to be a supplement to the unemployment compensation that will be ongoing. We are also very fortunate to have in Amarillo, and as part of the American Rescue Plan, a lot of rental assistance, utility assistance, mortgage assistance that's available right now because of the pandemic. So those benefits are also available. And the first place I tell people to go is 211, dial 211. If you are stuck in Amarillo and you're trying to get to your job in New Mexico and you need some gas money, I would go to 211. If I need rental assistance, I would go to 211. If I need utility assistance, I would go to 211. If I need diapers, I would go to 211. Because 211 is a resource that has all the resources available. They don't have them available right there, but they can point you in the direction of the right program that will help you with whatever benefits you need. So is there anything, David, you would like to add?
Well, you pretty much took up most of the presentation I thought I was giving. But I did
would you tell us about veterans benefits?
I can't speak on the subject of veterans benefits.
Okay.
Sorry. Basically, in terms of the SNAP benefits, I just wanted to add that they can be used with a debit card, the SNAP card at grocery stores, convenience stores, and some farmers markets. And they cannot be used to purchase alcohol or tobacco products, non-food items like vitamins or medicine, and they can't be used for food that is eaten in the store or hot foods.
Okay. So you can't go into your convenience store and buy a hot dog, but you can buy a package of hot dogs and package of buns.
Right. And generally, a person must have a gross monthly income of 130% of poverty or less, and a net monthly income of 100% of poverty, which is $1,073 a month in 2021. And the maximum monthly individual benefit is just over $204.
For one person.
Right. And there are work requirements connected with SNAP. You need to either be working or in a work training program. And it is possible for homeless people to get SNAP benefits even though they don't have a place to live.
The work program does not apply to people who are on disability, right?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Now, in terms of trying to look at things that would reduce the cost of their income total, their gross income total, you can look at things like housing costs, child support payments, and child and dependent care expenses. And somebody over 60 can also look at unreimbursed medical expenses to reduce their gross income for SNAP purposes.
So that might take someone who's over the 130 and put them, if you take those exemptions or the deductions, it'll bring them down to the level, their net income, right? Down to
exactly.
The level. Okay.
So childless adults without disabilities who work less than 20 hours a week or are not in a work program can only get SNAP benefits for 3 months every 3 years. And people who are not legal permanent residents can only get SNAP benefits if they've waited 5 years. Children, however, can apply for SNAP benefits without proof of residency.
Good to know. Oh. Other questions?
I have a few. On as far as the SNAP benefits, they can buy anything. What about in regards to diapers and like formula and things like that? Are they still able to purchase those things or no? Because last time I heard, I guess they're limited or they're not able to purchase formula. Am I mistaken about that?
Well, they have to buy food items. So on the face there, it'd say diapers cannot be purchased using SNAP benefits.
Okay.
There is, however, the Women's Infant and Children Program, in which you can, I believe, buy diapers in that program.
You can only buy formula and baby food.
Formula? Okay.
You cannot buy diapers. With WIC, it's the WIC program has formula, food for the child, but not diapers. I just read that.
So right now there's not a benefit that covers where they can buy diapers that help them with that.
Temporary assistance for needy family is for anything.
Oh, okay.
Any item that, right. But that again has income programs, work programs, all these kinds of things. But yes, so the SNAP and WIC will not cover diapers or any of those things regarding a child's sanitary needs.
Okay, and then back to my question for like the benefits, I guess, for like the elderly that they're missing out on. Are there any classes or does the workforce post anything or help them with that, the application process so that they're not missing out on those type of, I guess, benefits that they're missing out on because they don't know how to properly fill out the form?
No, there is not.
Okay.
There is not. And we see them come into our office, and if we see them, we try to work with them on their recertification, because you're certified for food stamps, I think it's every 6 months. And when they go into that recertification process, that's when we try to get them the higher level of benefit, because we're adding in all of their medical expenses that they can deduct. For instance, I had a client who he had to drive in from outside of Amarillo to go to the pharmacy and go to the doctor. And so he'd have to pick up his prescriptions, and then on different days he'd have to go to the doctor, and all this travel from outside of Amarillo into Amarillo. And you can deduct the mileage. That can be an expense. And the expense is calculated based on whatever the IRS rate is for mileage, and that can be deducted. They're not looking at that kind of thing. You have to already know it in order to try to get that expense added. So that's one of the things we're trying to get out in the public is you've got to be an advocate for yourself and try to get more benefit for yourself.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you for answering those.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? I don't.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, Kay and David, I thank you very much for your insight into all of these issues today. It was very informative for me personally. Deanna, do you have any other comments that you would like to make?
other than this was a very great presentation. It was a lot of good information. I can't wait to get this posted, and I hope you do send the recording to me because I think this is really important. A lot of people don't know about the benefits or wills or anything like that. I certainly didn't, even when people submitted questions and I was asking questions myself. So I think it's knowledge that needs to get out there, and I appreciate y'all coming in this morning and hosting this for us because I think it's very beneficial. We didn't have a lot of attendance, but I do believe that we'll have a lot of views with the recordings because this is really good information that the public needs for sure. And I appreciate and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. And I will be sending it as quickly as I can.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for allowing us to do the presentation. We appreciate it.
So I hope we get to do it again for sure.
Absolutely.
In person.
In person. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
Thank you.